My generation, my demographic, they still, and I repeat, they still don't understand it. I'm told Bitcoin is rat poison. I'm told it's a decentralized Ponzi scheme. I'm told that it's worthless. And yet it's not, obviously. Why is Bitcoin popping? Bitcoin's popping because people realize that the fractional banking system is less sturdy than Bitcoin. We torched Bitcoin. We had Gary Gensler. We had Elizabeth Warren. We had Joe Biden. You pick the obstacles that Bitcoin has had. We've had wars. We've had market turmoil. We've had budget fights. And Bitcoin grinds and Bitcoin grinds. My price target's 200 because I see the demand, and I'm making an assumption that the political landscape calms down. But if you get a couple of things going right, it could easily go to 250. There's no supply for this thing. Yeah. Okay, let me tell you something. There's people that need to buy this. There's sovereigns that need to own this, and there's no supply. You're going to add $3.1 trillion of deficit spending in the U.S. over the next 10 years. That's called print, baby, print. It's not drill, baby, drill. It's print. So how is it possible that Bitcoin's not going to go to 200?
Anthony Scaramucci candidly admits that his own generation is still struggling to grasp the Bitcoin phenomenon, often dismissing it with labels like rat poison or a decentralized Ponzi scheme. Yet Scaramucci stands firm, arguing that this skepticism is rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of both Bitcoin's resilience and the growing fragility of our legacy financial systems. He believes we are witnessing a pivotal moment where the digital asset is transitioning from a speculative risk asset into a globally recognized store of value. And he has a compelling case for why even the most hardened critics should be paying very close attention.
Subscribe to Daily Bitcoin Trends for expert insights, real-time market updates, and proven crypto strategies. No hype. Just smart analysis to help you make better decisions in crypto.
I think we have a long way to go here. I think people really still don't understand. Like, you're a Bitcoiner. I go to these Bitcoin conferences, and I try to give the Bitcoin people a newsflash. You're a small group of people. Okay, you think you're the people. You think everyone's into Bitcoin. No. My generation, my demographic, they still, and I repeat, they still don't understand it. My generation, my demographic is still, followers of Jamie Dimon and followers of Warren Buffett.
Sure, I was going to say,
and so just imagine if we can penetrate that group of people. Just imagine if we can open them up to the idea of Bitcoin. Now, Larry, of course, what a great story. 2021, I hate Bitcoin. I'm going to make an investment in Circle. Of course, he's done very well with his Circle investment. And then he pivots. So think about the neuroplasticity that you need. I'm told Bitcoin is rat poison. I'm told it's a decentralized Ponzi scheme. I'm told that it's worthless. And yet it's not, obviously. And yet you have to then get your arms around the network, the brilliance of Satoshi's white paper, the unhackability of Bitcoin. You have to get your arms around the immutability of Bitcoin and all of the technical properties that Bitcoin has that represents pure value exchange between individuals. Because what is it really? It's a decentralized, hardened, fully transparent spreadsheet. That's what it is. Yeah. You're looking at it. I'm looking at it. Most people are still not looking at it. Again, just being totally serious. But when they do look at it, they're like, whoa, this is a storage of value mechanism. It trades 24/7. It can be a hedge. It could be a liquidity deposit for me. It could be, okay, I'm going overnight on these trades. Let me pump several $1 million into Bitcoin. Okay, the weekend is coming. Yeah, maybe we're going to be bombing somebody. Maybe something crazy is going to happen over the weekend, right? Watch Bitcoin over the weekend, because what happens is it's so liquid. If you're a macro trader or you've got other trades on,
exactly, yeah,
Bitcoin may drop over the weekend as you're trying to hedge yourself, or Bitcoin may go up over the weekend as you're trying to take on more. I think Bitcoin still is, in my mind, it's transitioning from a risk asset and a tech asset into a store of value. And so there's a little bit more anti-fragility to that. And I can point to when it happened. When Silicon Valley Bank cratered 2 years ago, Bitcoin popped. And everybody was like, whoa, why is Bitcoin popping? Bitcoin's popping because people realize that the fractional banking system is less sturdy than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of, okay. We torched Bitcoin. We had Gary Gensler. We had Elizabeth Warren. We had Joe Biden. You pick the obstacles that Bitcoin has had. We've had wars. We've had market turmoil. We've had budget fights. And Bitcoin grinds and Bitcoin grinds. Bitcoin is at 105 against every odd imaginable.
Yeah.
Okay, and so, it's like, I can't remember the name of that law, but the longer it lasts, the more durable it is. I would say get off of zero, and you're probably off of zero if you're listening to Bitcoin Capital, so add to it.
Yeah.
You got to wake up. Okay, I did something really smart at 18, and that it was very hard to do, but I did it every month. I took a little bit of my money and I bought the U.S. stock market. I read Burton Malkiel's book, Random Walk on Wall Street, and I said, okay, I'm not going to be able to pick the winners and losers. I'm going to buy $100 of the S&P 500 in a mutual fund. They eventually became ETFs, but I'm going to do this. Every day, I'm going to save a little bit of money, and I'm going to do this. And I tell kids today, save a little bit of money and put it into Bitcoin. My price target's 200 because I see the demand, and I'm making an assumption that the political landscape calms down. But if you get a couple of things going right, it could easily go to 250. There's no supply for this thing. Yeah. Okay, let me tell you something. There's people that need to buy this. There's sovereigns that need to own this, and there's no supply. So what's happening right now is you're getting a little bit of a churn here because of the political volatility and the macro volatility and the lack of foreseeability on rates. You pass the big, beautiful spending bill. You're going to add $3.1 trillion of deficit spending in the U.S. over the next 10 years. That's called print, baby, print. It's not drill, baby, drill. It's print. So how is it possible that Bitcoin's not going to go to 200? So just said differently, 200 is a $4 trillion valuation, market capitalization for something I think is an asset class. That's what, 2 Amazons? Yeah. Bitcoin's going to be worth 2 Amazons when the U.S. government's printing like that. I think it's very cheap. So yeah, I think it's 200.
Anthony Scaramucci builds an airtight case for Bitcoin by connecting its proven resilience to an unavoidable macroeconomic reality. He argues that the asset has already won, having withstood relentless attacks from regulators like Gary Gensler and politicians like Elizabeth Warren, only to emerge stronger through market turmoil and geopolitical crises. This durability makes it the perfect antidote to rampant government spending and currency debasement, what he calls the print economy. As the U.S. adds trillions in debt, the demand for Bitcoin's mathematically enforced finite supply becomes a certainty. He foresees institutions, individuals, and even sovereign nations being forced to adopt it as a store of value, driving his price target to $200,000 and beyond. This isn't just a financial hedge, it's a movement toward a fairer, more inclusive system that challenges entrenched powers and must eventually become a bipartisan strategic asset.
Here's the thing I would say to you about everything, and I think you would appreciate this. I have been wrong about so many things in my 36-year career. I am so grateful for Bitcoin. I finally believe I've gotten something super right? Everybody says you need that one mega trade. You need to buy Tesla when Elon is buying it from the guys that he bought it from. You need to be a part of the commercial space industry at day one. You know what I'm loving right now? I got in. I didn't get in as early as the OG people, but for a U.S. institutional investor, I'm 61 years old. I bought my first Bitcoin at age 56. I'm an old fogey, but I got there ahead of the other old fogies. Well, it's had an impact because they haven't sold any more Bitcoin like the Biden administration was doing, and so that cuts the supply. I think David Sachs is a brilliant guy. I want to give him credit for a lot of the things that he's doing. He's a very honest broker of these things. But I think David Sachs went to the president and said, we have to make this bipartisan. So if you read the executive order, they're not going to use U.S. dollars to buy it or tax revenues to buy it. They're buying it from different things, or they're saving it, or if they take it off of like a Silk Road transaction, they'll keep it. But I think it's very important because we have 28 things in our reserves right now, including petroleum and gold. We have medical equipment. We have rare earth minerals, all different types of things in our reserve. And every one of those things is nonpartisan, meaning if, Jesse, you're a Democrat,
Neutral,
I'm a Republican, we're not arguing about whether or not we need gold or oil in our reserve. We both know that we do. For some reason, Bitcoin was politically polarized. Primarily, we don't have the time to go into it, but primarily by Warren and Gensler. And so we need to reduce the polarization of it. This is why that stablecoin legislation, I like. It was like, 68-33 maybe, was it? I think that's what it was, okay, right? Or 68-30 or something like that on the vote for the stablecoin legislation. And what I would say to you is let's let it become bipartisan. Let's let a couple of election cycles go, and then let's have a Democratic president say, hey, just letting everybody know I've added $100 billion to our Bitcoin reserve to shore up our Bitcoin against our gold positions. What I would say to you is that the strong are now eating the weak. The strong are now eating the weak. And so the people that are in power, if they want something to happen, they can push the money into the system and they can make it happen inside the system. So the strong are eating the weak. The Bitcoin idea, the reason it's catching on is that the weak hate that. Okay, and the weak will always, the Bible actually says this, the weak will always eat the strong eventually, right? I mean, there'll always be a toppling. If you want to take advantage of weak and poor people over time, they get together and they topple you because there's a very small group of powerful people at the top, right? And so that happens, and you can see that throughout history. So I would caution people. They should be moving to where you want things to go more quickly, because where you want things to go is fairer for the society. See what I mean? And so, but this is the dilemma that we have. And so guys like Teddy Roosevelt, they got that. They broke up the trust. They broke up Rockefeller. They broke up Standard Oil. Reagan got that. He broke up AT&T with Judge Harold Green. In order to have the thing flourish, you've got to have everybody doing well. Henry Ford understood that. He was like, all right, he was a racist and in many ways a bad guy, but he was like, I got to make sure that the people that are building these cars are going to make enough money to be able to buy the car, and they're going to have a nice single-family house somewhere and a good school system. I don't want them descending on my Dearborn, Michigan mansion with a tiki torch and a pitchfork, right? And so what you're talking about is a flattening, fairer system, okay, a more open system.
Yeah, more inclusive,
Yeah, more inclusive, but it will take economic rent away from certain big players, and so they're going to fight it every step of the way.
In the end, Scaramucci's message is one of humility and conviction. He openly admits he's been wrong about many things in his career, but after buying his first Bitcoin at age 56, he feels he has finally gotten something super right. He sees himself as an old fogey who got ahead of his peers, proving it's never too late to adapt and understand a new paradigm. His advice is simple and actionable, mirroring the strategy that built his own wealth in the stock market. Start small, be consistent, and get off zero. Just as he once dollar cost averaged into the S&P 500, he now urges the next generation to do the same with Bitcoin. Because as the world slowly awakens to this digital store of value, those who took the first step will be the ones who benefit from one of the most significant financial shifts in modern history.